Hello, everybody. My name is Marc Duffy. I am an alumni of Limonar International School, having studied there between 2001 and 2007. All in all, they were 7 of the best years of my life, um, mainly because I was studying and living in Spain, which is a much nicer and warmer place to live than Sheffield, which is where I live now. I had all my secondary education in Limonar, and half of my primary education was there as well. Hopefully, what I'd like to do today is to talk to you a little bit about who I am and what I've done since I left Limonar, and hopefully I can give you some tips for the future and how you guys might approach your own attitude towards careers and moving forward in your lives. Now, when I was first talked to about what did I want to do when I grew up, what did I want to be, I found that really scary, and it was probably the stage that you guys are at now. Um, I remember the school saying to me at the end of secondary, "What would you like to do? What would you like to be when you leave?" And I found that to be a really unfair question because only a week before, only a day before, maybe that morning, I was just a normal student. I was a kid, and I found it really difficult to be treated like a kid one day and then expect to decide on my future career the next day. I found that a really challenging thing to do, and hopefully I can tell you about what I actually did as we progress. But there's one really, really important topic that I think everybody needs to be aware of when it comes to the school that you're currently studying in. At El Limonar in Murcia, it's absolutely normal so that every person in that school can speak English and they can speak Spanish. And it feels like the most normal and easy, common thing in the world. And it's really, really not. When you leave the comfort of your school and you work in the real environment, in the real world, whether that be in the UK or Spain or somewhere else, you will find how uncommon it is and how impressive it is that you can speak more than one language. It's practically unheard of, especially in the UK. So coming on to my first job, when I was 17, I just left El Limonar and I didn't really know what I wanted to do in my life. I hadn't really got much of an idea. I went for 2 interviews in a week when I first came back to live in Sheffield. The first one was for a company called Matalan, which sells cheap clothes, and the second one was for a company called Siemens. I went for the interview at Matalan and they didn't like me and they said, "No, we're not interested in you, please leave." And then a day later I went for the interview at Siemens, and all they were asking someone to do at Siemens was to work with spreadsheets and to make the spreadsheets do what they needed them to do. And luckily for me, I had a great advantage that the IT education that we'd received at Limonar was fantastic. There's a fantastic teacher in the secondary department at school called Kevin, and Kevin did a really, really good job of teaching me about Excel and about macros and about how companies use these programs. So I was very lucky that as soon as they talked about Excel, I had the skills to talk back to them about what Excel was and what Excel meant. So I felt very fortunate, and I got the job on the basis of that. So the cheap clothes shop said no, they weren't interested in me, and then the world leading engineering company quite liked my skills. And I think the takeaway from that is that not all jobs and not all interviews are for you, and if you don't get something, that's fine, it doesn't matter, but the right one, you will shine and you'll come out in the right way. So I worked for Siemens for about 9 years altogether, and I got the job based on my IT skills, thank you to the people at Limonar that taught me those skills. So I started out as a print room assistant, but unfortunately, within about a week, I'd completed the whole task of that job for 6 months because of the skills that I'd learned. I set up a really clever macro that did basically what was going to be my job. So I sat down with my boss And he said to me, Mark, you've done a good job, but unfortunately you've done everything we need you to do in a few weeks, and your contract is over. You no longer have a job. What else do you know? What else can you do? What else are you interested in? Maybe we can find you a job somewhere else. And that turned out to be the best thing that ever happened, because that company had just got a contract in South America where they had a large steel producer in Mexico, a company called AMSA, and they make iron and steel. And they had a really big problem in that nobody in the Sheffield office could speak to anybody in the Mexican office. And that was a really scary thing for this company. I think the contract was worth about $500 million, and nobody in this company that earned all the money was confident to speak to these people. So I came along and said, I'll do it, no problem. One thing I learned very quickly is that Latin American Spanish is very different to real Spanish, or certainly Murcian Spanish, if that's fair. But I still had the basic building blocks, and it was a great learning experience. So I think the lesson to take from that is I learned two fantastic lessons from my time at El Limonar, which was fantastic IT skills that got me the job, and then fantastic Spanish skills that helped me to progress within that company. So there's the day you enter, and then there's the day that you can make something of that. And that's something that you guys all will have the skill to do now. So don't underestimate the importance of the skills you already have. Make sure that you're aware of those and where it could take you in your future careers. Now, I decided not to stay at Siemens forever. I decided to move on after a few years, and I'm happy to talk to you about that. Siemens were very good to me in that they paid for me to do a degree. They paid for me to do an undergraduate degree while I was studying, while I was working. And that came to an end in 2011. So immediately after that, I thought about what I'd like to do with my life after that. And I decided that I'd like to do a PhD. And for those of you that don't know, a PhD is the final qualification that you can do after you've done an undergraduate degree and you've done a master's degree. And a PhD is a research degree, and you get to do some research. So I decided to do a research project with the university that I'd studied at, Sheffield Hallam University, and I completed that research PhD 2 years ago. So I've now got my PhD, and that's helped me in my career since then. So on the basis of doing that PhD, I now work for Sheffield Hallam University as a lecturer. So my job has changed completely. In some ways, I feel like I never left school. I'm kind of back at school again, but in different context. So working in a university is a really, really positive thing for me. And it's a very, very different job to the job I did before. And I think one thing I'd like to share with you guys today is that just because you go into a career at first doesn't mean it's the career you have to stay in. So just because you go into a job when you finish school doesn't mean that that's the job you have to do forever. A large part of my research for my doctorate looks at the idea of a job for life is gone. No one wants a job for life anymore. So just because you start a job doesn't mean that's the job you'll do forever. It's perfectly acceptable nowadays, particularly in the UK, to start a job, do it for a few years, and then have a look around and see what's available to you. So when you guys are looking at the careers you'd like and the careers you're thinking about, please bear that in mind. Now, if you're looking to go to university, particularly in the UK, I would really recommend that you think strongly about the university that you choose to go to. Not all universities are the same. Not all universities will teach you in the same way. And there's a drastic difference between the type of institution that you choose. Generally speaking, in the UK, we have two types of university. Traditional universities, which are sometimes called red brick universities, and then we have teaching universities that are much more applied in their learning. And one of the fantastic things about choosing a teaching university is that you will more often than not have the opportunity to do a placement halfway through your degree. So the way it works at my university, for example, in Sheffield, is that you can do the first year of your degree and the second year of your degree before moving on to what we call a placement year, where you can go and work for a company for a year before coming back and finishing your degree. And the benefits of that are that you get the experience of working for a large organization. You can decide if it's the kind of place you'd like to spend your time in your future careers, or you can decide to do something else. And it's a really, really useful thing for students to do, not least because some students come back and say, I will never, ever work in that industry ever again. I hate it, or I love it. So if you look at the university you're going to go to, that can make a big difference. So please think about where you're going. Not all universities are the same, nor do you have to go to university. So hopefully my story is a really interesting one and useful one for you. I was in the exact same position that you guys are in now. I still can't believe that it was 12 years ago since I left Limonar. I've only been back once in all of that time, which is awful, and I really, really wish I could visit a lot more. This year, I'll be back in Spain in June, so I'm really hoping to pop in and see everybody again, and I'll be really happy to talk to anybody about their ideas and their ambitions for their life. If I can leave you with one thing, one idea, it would probably be, don't see the job that you go into when you leave school as the job you have to do forever. It's perfectly acceptable now to do a job for a few years, build a career, and decide what you really want in life. The thing that held it all together for me was education. I did a degree, a master's degree, and then a PhD, and that was the thread that gave me the opportunity in life. So don't see the end of school as the end of your education, and don't see the first job that you go into as the job you will have to do for the rest of your life. Hopefully that was interesting. I'll provide my contact details for anybody that would like to talk to me further. And for now, thank you for listening, and goodbye.